Welcome to Audiobook Heritage. Today, we present The Key to Success by Russell Conwell. The Key to Success by Russell Conwell. Years ago, many traveled up the Ganges River in India. At the time, many correspondents on the road, and we visited Agra, the sacred city of northern India, before making our way to the Taj Mahal. We then hired an ox team to take us across the countryside, 22 miles. To the summer residents of Akbar, the great Mughal of India. It's a remarkable, albeit ghostly city. I've never regretted my journey through that land. The sights and sounds provided me with a story that I've yet to see in print. Recently, Harper's Magazine published an illustrated article about the city, so if you manage to find the archives, etc., you may come across an account of that extraordinary abandoned city at Fatehpur Sikri. As we explored those ancient buildings, our guide, steeped in Eastern tradition, shared a legend related to the site's ancient past. This tale has often served as a powerful illustration of the practical ideas aimed to convey. Wrote it down in a form of shorthand that's now hard to decipher. But the story is firmly etched in my memory. Our guide recounted that before the great Mughal acquired this land, there once stood a magnificent palace at that very site. This palace was the backdrop for a legendary tale. In the palace, there was an opulent throne room. At the far end of this room, a raised platform held a throne crafted from burnished gold. Next to the throne stood a pedestal that supported the exquisite crown of silver, an emblem the emperor donned when his word was to become absolute law. During ordinary times, he was just like any other citizen. But once he placed that crown upon his head, its silver structure reflecting a value far beyond that of gold, his commands became unwavering, as firm as the laws of the Medes and Persians. The guide then told us that the old king, who had governed that land for countless years, passed away without leaving any heirs behind. This left no one worthy to lay claim to the throne or to wear the illustrious crown of silver. Believing in the divine right of kings, the people refused to accept anyone as ruler who was not born into the royal lineage. They spent 12 long years searching for a successor, a relative of the late king. Eventually, despair turned to chaos. Anarchy enveloped the land. Businesses ground to a halt, and famine took hold of the suffering populace. In their desperation, they called upon the astrologers, who acted as their priests to find a king. The astrologers, who were devoted to the study of the stars, gathered in the throne room. Consulting their intricate charts, they posed the question to the heavens, "Where shall we find a successor to our king?" The stars replied, saying, "Look across your land, and when you encounter a man whom the animals follow, whom the sun serves, whom the waters obey, whom the humanity adores, and whom humanity adores, you need not inquire about his lineage. This man will be of royal blood, worthy of the golden throne and the crown of silver." With this revelation, the astrologers dispersed to seek answers among the people. Have you seen a man whom the animals follow, whom the sun serves, whom the waters obey, and whom mankind loves? Their inquiries were met with nothing but laughter and scorn. Finally, during his journey, an aged astrologer found himself in the heart of the Himalaya mountains. As a fierce December storm enveloped the region, he sought refuge in a huntsman's secluded cottage perched on the mountainside. That night, as he lay wide awake, mourning the plight of his suffering and dying people, he was suddenly startled by the chilling howl of a wild beast echoing down the valley. He listened intently as the sound grew closer. Note, identifying the distinct purr of a hyena, and the menacing hiss of a tiger, and the haunting howl of a wolf. Moments later, those wild animals pressed their noses against the log walls that enclosed him. Overcome with fear, he hurried to close the window, desperate to keep the feral creatures at bay from the moonlit space. As he stood there, soon, his gaze caught the dark silhouette of his host, the huntsman, descending the rickety ladder from the loft above. his figure blending into the shadows of the dimly lit room. The astrologer watched as the huntsman approached the door, seemingly ready to open it and step outside. In a flash, soon, he jumped forward and warned, "Don't open that door. There are tigers, panthers, hyenas, wolves out there." The huntsman calmly replied, "Lie down, my friend. I peace in peace. These are acquaintances of mine." With that, he flung open the door, and in walked a tiger, a panther, a hyena, and a wolf. The huntsman moved to the corner of his hut and retrieved some dried weeds that he had collected the previous fall. He had observed that these weeds served as antidotes for poisoned wild animals. Sensing the antidote from a distance, the poisoned creatures had gathered at his door. When he opened it, they followed him to the corner of the hut, united by their shared distress. He carefully fed each animal the antidote it needed, and one by one, they licked his hand in gratitude before leaving harmlessly through the door. Then the huntsman closed the door after the last animal had left and settled down as if nothing unusual had occurred. This is the enchanting tale that was shared with me. As the old astrologer lay on his rug after the creatures had departed, he thought to himself, "The animals follow him." Then, he grasped a message from the stars and mused, "Perhaps this huntsman is a king." But upon reflection, dismissed the idea. No, he is not a king. How would he appear on a throne of gold, wearing a silver crown? That simple, rugged man of the mountains. He is certainly not a king. The next morning brought a chill. And they craved warmth from a fire. The huntsman ventured outside. Gathering leaves and sticks. He carefully arranged them in the center of the hut on the ground. Then, he pulled aside a curtain that concealed a crystal set into the roof, which he had installed because he had noticed it focused the sunlight onto the floor below. Then the astrologer observed as the bright spot of light moved closer to the leaves and sticks with the rising sun. The sticks began to crackle. And soon after, the leaves began to curl. Little spirals of smoke rose into the air, and a flame flickered to life. Watching the flame rise, the astrologer thought to himself, the sun has ignited his fire. The sun serves him. And the animals followed him last night. Perhaps he really is the king. But then he reconsidered. No, he cannot be the king. How would it look for someone like me? With all my inherited nobility. My wealth. My knowledge. And education. To accept that this simple man could be a king of a kingdom belonged to. Surely. It's more likely that am the one destined for greatness. Not long after, the astrologer felt a thirst for water and turned to the huntsman. The huntsman replied, "There's a spring down in the valley where go to drink." So the astrologer made his way down to the spring. But the wind came down and stirred the shallow waters, making it impossible for him to drink. Complaining about the muddy water, he returned to the huntsman. The huntsman replied, Is that spring rebellious? I'll teach it a lesson." He moved to a corner of his hut and fetched a vial of oil that he had gathered himself. He then made his way to the spring and poured the oil onto the surface of the water. Instantly, the once turbulent spring transformed into a picture of tranquility. As the astrologer dipped his shimmering bowl into the clear stream and savored its refreshing liquid, he felt a stirring within him. A voice whispering, something like this: "This is the king. The waters obey him." Yet, despite this revelation, he found himself hesitating and muttered, "Hope he is not the king." The following day, they ventured into the mountains, where they encountered a dam holding back a vast reservoir of water in a valley. The astrologer inquired, "Why is there a dam here without a mill?" The huntsman responded, "There's, a few years ago, was down on the plains and the people were dying for lack of water. My heart went out to the suffering and dying humanity, and when returned here, I noticed something important. Want to pause here in this story and emphasize this phrase. When returned here, noticed. This is the infallible secret to success. I want you to be happy. I want you to embody the mighty forces of both God and man. I want you to have beautiful homes, extensive libraries, and wisely invested wealth. This is the only path that leads to achieving those dreams. This is the road that men who have attained great success have traveled. The huntsman then said, when returned here, noticed a boulder precariously perched on the mountainside, noticed that it could be easily dislodged, and realized it would make an excellent anchorage in the narrow valley for a dam. Noticed that a small dam constructed here could hold back a significant body of water from the mountains. So, let the boulder fall. These hot summer's days, we could have attained a quiet little dam in the mountains age. I will come out and dig away a little more of the dam, keeping the water flowing in the river throughout the scorching season. When autumn arrives, refill the dam and gather water for next year's supply. Upon hearing this, the astrologer turned to the huntsman and asked, "Do the people down on the plains know that you are their benefactor?" "Oh yes," the huntsman replied. "They figured it out, was down there not long ago, selling the skins collected during the winter. 2. They surrounded me, kissed me, embraced me, and practically overwhelmed me with their gratitude." Don't think I'll go back to the plains again. When the astrologer learned that mankind loved him, he knew all 4 conditions had been met. He fell to his knees, took the huntsman's weathered hand, gazed up into his scarred face, and declared, "You are a king born of royal lineage. The stars indeed foretold that when we discovered a man whom the animals followed, the sun served, the waters obeyed. Don't think I'll go back to the plains again. He would be the rightful heir to the throne, and you are that man." But the huntsman protested. "Me, a king? No, I'm not a king. My grandfather was a farmer." The astrologer replied patiently, "Do not speak of your grandfather. That is irrelevant. The stars have declared you are the one." The huntsman countered, "How could you possibly rule a nation when you know nothing of the law?" "I have never studied law." In response, the astrologer swiftly concluded the debate with a theological pronouncement from ancient sacred texts, which shall present in a literal translation. "Let not the one whom the stars have chosen to rule dare defy their divine will." To modernize that, it could be summarized as, "Never turn down a nomination." Upon hearing this wise counsel, the huntsman reluctantly agreed to be taken down to the Juna Valley and to the magnificent palace. There, they adorned him in royal purple. It's all about hard work and determination. And while there's truth in that, there also would be argue that these qualities alone are insufficient. As have learned, true leadership requires more than just grit. It demands a unique blend of vision, charisma, compassion, and resilience. Vision, because a leader must see not just what is, but what could be. Charisma, for it inspires others to follow. Compassion, as it fosters a genuine connection with people. And resilience, for when challenges arise, as they inevitably will, it is this quality that allows a leader to endure and thrive. So, as you read these pages, consider, do you possess any of these traits? If so, embrace them. If not, strive to cultivate them. Because I'm here to remind you that inside each of you lies the potential for greatness. You are the kings and queens of tomorrow, and it's time for you to rise and claim your crown. Oh, we don't have any kings or queens in this country. Have you ever noticed that America is governed by fewer people than any other nation on earth? And that same small number will continue to govern even as we soon include all women in the voting population. America is ruled by a select few kings and queens. The reason we have such a small ruling class is that our citizens are generally intelligent. Oh, you might ask, do you mean the rule of political bosses? Yes, but that's not the best term to use, as it can be misleading. America is indeed governed by bosses, and that will remain the case as long as we are a free people. While we may disapprove of certain aspects of boss rule, let me clarify, only a very small number of individuals govern the American populace. Take my home city of Philadelphia, for example. Nearly 2 million residents are led by just 4 or 5 men. That dynamic will likely persist. Ultimately, it all hinges on whether those 4 or 5 leaders are well suited for their roles. If they are wise and good men, unquote, then that represents the best form of government. Without a doubt, if all 80 or 90 million people in the United States were required to vote on every single action taken by the government, it would take ages to make any significant reforms. An intelligent farmer wouldn't attempt to build his house all by himself. Instead of cutting, planning, and shaping the lumber, without a doubt, unquote, not to mention designing the house and nailing everything together, he would wisely hire a carpenter, an architect, and a mason, professionals who know their trade. In a competent society, we can engage individuals who are skilled in statesmanship, law, and social economics, those who are passionate about justice. We employ these experts to handle what we cannot. So why should everyone constantly interfere in matters they don't truly understand? They hire people who truly understand these matters. And as a result, in a free nation, only a select few individuals are entrusted with the responsibility of guidance. These are the individuals who possess a deeper insight into what actions to take in challenging or significant situations. You are governed by a small number of people, and I am searching for those few among my readers. There are women in this country today who wield more influence than any well-known statesman, yet their names rarely make it into the newspapers. Recall a time, back in the days of Queen Victoria, when posed a question to a college class, "Who rules England?" Naturally, they replied, "Queen Victoria." But did Queen Victoria actually rule England? During her nominal reign, England was the freest country on the planet, while America, when compared at its extremes, was far less free. She was merely a figurehead, and she wouldn't even share her thoughts on the Boer War. The real power was left in the hands of the statesmen, who had been chosen by Parliament to govern. They were the ones who truly held authority. I'm searching for the true rulers, not just those who hold titles, but I'm informing you will be brought to the successful men and women of the future through the 4 tests outlined in the ancient tradition of the Silver Crown. The first test states, animals will follow them. So, what if they tried to imprison them? If a dog or cat happens to trail behind you tomorrow, remember the significance of this moment. It signifies a sense of leadership or royalty. If you lack a cat, dog, ox, or horse that loves you, feel for you, have even greater sympathy for the animal. But your situation is also worthy of pity. Is there no creature beneath you that delights in your presence, that follows you eagerly, or that greets you joyfully at your door? Does no cat purr with excitement when you return home after a time away? Is there no loyal dog that leaps up, barking with happiness at the sound of your key in the lock? If you find yourself without these companions, it's time to consider welcoming one into your life, because one of the crucial pathways to achieving great success lies in the lessons and encouragement that our relationships with animals can provide. The time has come when a dog should truly be valued at no less than $1,000. It is a moment when a horse that currently trots a mile in 2:05 or 2:06 should be capable of completing that distance in 55 seconds. Scientifically, this is within reach. Now, where are your deacons, your elders, your class leaders, Why is there not a single horse in your city that can trot a mile in 55 seconds? Oh, some well-meaning brother might say, don't pay any attention to trotting horses. You're too religious for that. Doct, is that so? Who created the trotting horse? Who employed the most vivid language in the book of Job to describe him? Have you ever owned a trotting horse? Have you ever witnessed a magnificent animal, well-fed and well cared for, poised at the starting line, mane quivering, eyes sparkling, nostrils flaring, and every fiber of his being ready to spring forth? And did you hear the shot and watch him race away? If you did and didn't feel a spark of love for him, then perhaps you shouldn't be part of the church. The time has come when a horse can be as valuable as a university. One day at Yale University, heard a professor of science tell the students that a horse generates enough galvanic or electric force within its body, constantly produced by the activities of life, so that if that electricity could be concentrated and harnessed, a horse could stand still and power a 40-horsepower electric engine. He went even further, claiming that a man has enough continually generated electricity in his living body that, if it were focused, he could stand still and power a 10-horsepower electric engine. As left that classroom, I felt a sense of triumph, thinking, perhaps there will be a purpose after all for the idle folks who linger on the corners smoking. A few years ago in Europe, there was even an invention of a sewing machine that a lady could operate with her bare feet, using her own electric forces to set the machine in motion. This power is not yet sufficient to operate the machine effectively enough for real sewing. The challenge lies in harnessing more of that woman's electricity to amplify her strength. Soon, if a young man seeks a valuable partner, he'll need to marry someone charged with energy. The time is fast approaching when the motoring force of the world might be entirely supplied by living creatures. Once the next breakthrough occurs, we may witness magnificent airships soaring through the skies, potentially carrying along a cherished lapdog. These airships won't require coal or oil. They will solely rely on the electric energy generated by that little dog. If there's enough sustenance to keep the dog energized, it will provide the power needed to operate the motors. The vast expanse of the skies may soon be filled with vessels driven by the energy of lapdogs or even by the aviator's own electricity. This future isn't as distant as many might believe, and it's a crucial advancement for our time, not just for the purposes of war, but for the sake of peace. The time has come when an old hen could serve as a remarkable teacher for the world. Would rather send my child to learn from an old hen than to any professor I've ever encountered in my life. That old bird scratching around your door, cackling beside your fence, or picking at your flowers knows more about certain things than any scientific professor on this planet. Wish could understand what that old hen understands. Yet, some professors who claim to possess exceptional intellect proclaim graduated from Leipzig, Oxford, or Harvard, and don't have time to observe a hen. No time to pay attention to a hen? My friend, have you ever tried to converse with her? No, she has no language. Haven't you ever heard her call her chicks and seen them come running? Haven't you ever heard her scold the rooster and watched him scurry away? Well, that hen does have a language. And it's about time you scientific professors grasped the meaning of what that old bird is communicating. Oh, but, says the professor, have no time to waste with a hen. They're always around, yet rarely give them a second thought. Would you step into my study for a moment, Professor, and allow me to examine you? You've spent enough time studying the boys. Now it's your turn to be scrutinized. Just the egg. Tell me, Professor, can you identify where, within this egg, lies the beating heart of the future bird? Can you point it out? Oh no, I can't do that. Can explain the chemistry of the egg. I'm not interested in that. I'm seeking the design within the egg. I'm looking for something far more divinely mysterious than anything chemistry can provide. Carlson, he was pondering those profound mysteries. He looked at the egg in his hand and mused. There is something about this that science has yet to unveil fully. There's an intricacy here, a delicate harmony of nature that goes beyond mere chemistry. Indeed, Professor replied, we can analyze the components and define the processes involved. But the essence of life, the very spark that ignites its journey, eludes our grasp. Exactly, he said, nodding thoughtfully. We can observe, experiment, and theorize, yet the heart of creation remains a wonder beyond our reach. We can study a hen, understand its biology, etc., but we will never fully comprehend the instinctive wisdom that guides it in nurturing that egg. There's a sacredness to this cycle. Agreed. As we delve into the complexities of life, we must also acknowledge the mystery that envelops it. For every scientific explanation, there lies much more that we have yet to discover. In the end, perhaps we ought to approach it with humility, he continued. Every time we encounter a mother hen, we should tip our hats, recognizing that her knowledge, though not articulated, is a form of wisdom far older and deeper than the science we have come to trust. And with that, we stood in quiet contemplation, united in our shared awe of the magnificent enigma that is life. Oliver Wendell Holmes, the esteemed poet of Massachusetts, invited me to visit his backyard to see his chickens. He assured me that they would respond to their names. However, much to my surprise, they behaved just like our children, refusing to show off in front of guests. Yet, have no doubt that those little chickens still recognize their individual names when called by their mother hen. I'm certain that this esteemed man understood hens and their chicks just as thoroughly as Darwin understood doves. It's remarkable for science that individuals like Holmes and Darwin could glean such profound insights from the humble hen. This brings to mind a recent event from Dr. Holmes's own life, which seems to have gone unnoticed in the biographies. He and Mr. Longfellow were very close friends, always playfully teasing one another like two mischievous boys whenever they met. One day, it is said that Dr. Holmes invited Mr. Longfellow to accompany him to a poultry show in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. He accepted the invitation and was genuinely fascinated by the chickens. The two great poets made their way to the poultry show, and as they strolled down the central aisle amidst the displays of hens and chickens, it brought me joy. They came across a large poster featuring a striking image of a rooster. With its wings spread wide and mouth open, the rooster seemed to be delivering a speech to a group of little chicks. The uniqueness of the image caught Mr. Longfellow's attention, and he turned to Dr. Holmes, saying, "Look there, you love chickens. You understand them." "Yes." "What do you think a rooster says when delivering a speech like that?" As they continued on, Dr. Holmes pondered the question. After a while, he paused and replied, "Yes, go ahead. I'll catch up with you." He retraced his steps to the poster, climbed up on a chair, removed the tacks, securing the advertisement at the top. Turned it over and took out his pencil. Carefully, he drew a line from the rooster's beak to the top of the poster, where he penned his interpretation of what the rooster might be saying to those curious little chickens. They say he didn't make a single correction to it, neither in line nor in word. After that, he sought out Mr. Longfellow and brought the illustrious poet back to see the poster. He had penned these lines in imitation of Longfellow's Psalm of Life. "Life is real, life is earnest, and the shell is not its pen. Egg thou art, and egg remainest. was not spoken of the hen. Art is long and time is fleeting. Be our bills then sharpened well, and not like muffled drums be beating. On the inside of the shell, in the world's broad field of battle, in the great barnyard of life, be not like those lazy cattle, be a rooster in the strife. Lives of roosters all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and when roasted, leave behind us hen tracks on the sands of time. Hen tracks that perhaps another chicken drooping in the rain. Some forlorn and hen-pecked brother, when he sees, shall crow again. Animal life can teach us much if we take the time to study it and notice it daily in our homes, in the streets, wherever we may be. Mastering natural forces. Science has shown us that the mentality and disposition of various animal species are significantly influenced by their diet. Take, for instance, the experiment conducted by Professor Virchow in Germany. He raised 2 little kittens, feeding them different types of food while keeping their environment identical. After 3 months, he approached one of the kittens with his finger extended. In an instant, the kitten arched its back, hissed, and scratched him, drawing blood. It was ferocious. Then, very crazy things happened. He reached out to the other kitten, which had been fed a different diet, and it affectionately rubbed against his finger, purring with all the charm of domestic bliss. What accounted for the difference between these 2 kittens? Nothing but their food. This makes it easy to understand why some individuals react with anger and others with gentleness. It all comes down to what they consume. Today, universities worldwide are establishing schools of domestic science, aimed at equipping people with knowledge of digestion and cooking chemistry. There is a tremendous demand for better cooks, yet the fashionable aristocratic American woman believes it is entirely beneath her dignity to cook a pie or a pudding, or even to boil potatoes. How short-sighted that is. The need for better cooks is immense. How many men fail in business because their wives are poor cooks? How many students see their grades suffer due to the terrible biscuits served in boarding houses? Oh yes, yes. And how many graves in that cemetery over there might still be empty if only there had been a skilled cook in those homes? I've taken on a rather daunting topic now, the dire need for better cooks. Man can't even be pious when he's plagued by dyspepsia. The so-called American woman who sits in her parlor, surrounded by lace curtains, working on delicate embroidery while entrusting the intricate chemistry of her kitchen to a girl who can't tell a frying pan from a horse rake, is hardly deserving of the title American lady. Any fool can sit among the curtains, but it takes a truly great mind to master the chemistry of the kitchen. If women abandon that throne of power, men must step in, or our civilization will falter. However, it won't delve into the myriad discoveries inspired by animals. For in this remarkable tradition, the true king was not only followed by creatures of the wild, but the sun served him, and the waters obeyed him. Now can intertwine these ideas for illustration, using the incredible locomotive that coals our railway trains. A locomotive contains coal, which is the carbon derived from the sun. Thus, the sun serves mankind by heating the water, and that water transforms into steam, driving the pistons across the land, obedient to humanity. We have such a pressing need to travel faster than we currently do. Just the other day, encountered a man who confessed he disliked traveling a mile a minute in a train. If you don't travel faster than a mile a minute 10 years from now, you'll feel like that old lady who boarded a slow train with a little girl. The conductor came through and asked for a ticket for the little girl, which the old lady replied, "She's too young to pay her fare." "No," said the conductor. "A big girl like that must pay." The old lady insisted. "Well, She was young enough to ride for free when we got on this train. You'll feel just like that if you don't pick up the pace in the next decade. The time is approaching when traveling from Philadelphia to San Francisco will involve stepping into a pipe or onto a wire. And in the blink of an eye, you'll find yourself in San Francisco. Does that sound extravagant? The day is coming when you won't consider it extravagant at all. As write this, that you, hang up, wait once delivered, and San Francisco will be waiting for you. A company is being established to lay the long-discussed pneumatic tube from New York to Boston. They've been battling it out in the courts over the right to lay the pipe. Once it's completed, you'll be able to send 100 weight of goods from the New York end, and it'll likely arrive in Boston in just 1 minute and 58 seconds. Now, what's stopping us from making a slightly larger pipe, putting a person inside, and sending them off in the same time frame? The only reason we can't send people at that lightning speed is similar to what an Irishman once said when he fell from a tall building. When asked, "Didn't the fall hurt you?" he replied, "No, it wasn't the falling that hurt me, it was the stopping so quickly." That's really the only challenge we face in utilizing those pneumatic tubes for human travel. We need these innovations now. Pretty soon, we will be on the lookout for the inventors. Will they come from some prestigious university or a renowned scientific school at Harvard, Yale, Oxford, or Berlin? It's certainly a possibility. We would not assert, even while preside over a university myself, that you won't find remarkable individuals there. Perhaps you will. But let us journey back in history for a moment and discover where these men and women truly emerge. Travel to northern England and descend 2 miles down a coal shaft. There, you'll find a young man diligently chiseling away at a vein of coal that measures 1.5 feet thick. His hair sticks out from under his hat. His face is covered in grime, and his fingers are blackened with soot. Yet, it's all something he passes on to his son. He works tirelessly, whistling as he goes. Is he a king? Indeed, one of the greatest this world has ever known. When Queen Victoria introduced her son, who would later become king, to that young man, she declared, "Present to you, my son, England's greatest man." What? This humble miner, who had attended school for only a few months in his life? While he may not have stepped foot in a classroom, he was studying all the while in the University of Experience. In the grand institution of the world, everyday observation. When such a man graduates, he earns the highest possible distinction. Don't need recommends. Let's step into the mine and ask the miner his name. Young man, what is your name? Stevenson. The very inventor of the locomotive. Where are your kings? Men. They may be found in the mine, on the mountain, in the humble cottage, or in the palace, wherever a person notices what others overlook. Wherever someone observes in their daily work what others have missed, there resides the king. Are any of my listeners milkmen? Do you feel disheartened when the streams freeze in winter? Not long ago, in West Virginia, there was a milkman who would deliver milk to the train every morning. As they loaded the milk onto the car, he took the time to study the locomotive waiting at the station. "What do you know about a locomotive?" someone asked him. Don't know anything about it." Is that really so? You have seen and ridden alongside these machines your entire life. And you've watched them standing proudly at the station. You've gazed at their immense structure with a sense of respect. Yet you claim to know nothing about them. And still, you expect to achieve success. That young man grew curious about the locomotive. He spent his time observing it, measuring its dimensions, and asking the engineer questions. One day, noticing his enthusiasm, the engineer brought him down to the switch and explained how to turn on the steam, how to shut it off, how to reverse the engine, ring the bell, and operate the whistle. The young man was thrilled. He returned home and spent his evenings drafting sketches of the locomotive. Just 2 years later, the same train pulled into the siding, and the engineer and fireman went to a nearby house for breakfast, leaving the locomotive unattended, waiting for the snow to be cleared from the track that had slipped down from the mountain. While they were away, a valve on the engine unexpectedly opened. This set the piston in motion, causing the train to move onto the main track, and then it started to descend the steep grade at full speed. The brakeman rushed out onto the rear platform and grabbed hold of the wheel brake in an effort to slow the train down. When he caught sight of the engineer and fireman at the top of the hill, frantically waving their arms as if something terrible had happened. Panic set in. The brakeman shouted, "There's the engineer and fireman, both of them up there. We're all going to be killed." Chaos erupted among the passengers. People fainted and screamed, and the alarm quickly spread to the second car and then to the baggage car, where a milkman was present. He dashed to the side door, intending to jump, but quickly realized that it would surely mean certain death. Instead, with the help of the baggage handler, he climbed over the tender and made his way to the engineer's station, feeling around for the lever through the smoke. When he finally located it, he pushed it down firmly and reversed the engine. It was nothing short of a miracle that those cylinder heads held. But with a terrible crack, the driving wheels came to a halt on the tracks, shooting fire through the snow as they began to roll back against the moving train, the momentum still propelling it forward. It shook the entire train until every pane of glass shattered. When it finally came to a stop, the passengers scrambled out to find out who had halted the train. They discovered that it was this young man who had done it, saving their lives, and they thanked him with tears in their eyes. An elderly man, nearly 80 years old, and a stockholder in the railroad company, was on the train. That night, he attended the stockholders' meeting and recounted his narrow escape aboard that train. Since then, that milkman has become one of the wealthiest railroad owners in the world. But what do you suppose happened to the other milkmen who had traveled at the same time to the same place? Sitting on the edge of the platform, swinging their feet. What has become of them? Ask the winds that sweep down from the Allegheny Mountains. Where are the other milkmen? The winds will respond. They are still headed to the pump. It has always been that way. Success in any field hinges on the ability to learn and grow from the events that are happening around us each day. The true leaders are those who notice what others overlook. As for the great scientific minds, of which we are in dire need, they often don't receive the recognition they deserve simply because they have not graduated from a prestigious institution. There seems to be a prevailing notion nowadays that places value on an aristocracy of those who have graduated from elite universities. But a degree does not define a person's destiny. It may be a fleeting form of tyranny, but ultimately, every man and woman must find their rightful place in the world and pursue the endeavors they are best suited for, those that they genuinely understand and are passionate about. Where someone graduated from, i.e., or when, will soon hold little significance in the race of practical life. We need great scientists now more than we have ever needed them before. But where will we find them? We certainly won't discover them among those who come up with frivolous inventions, like the man who improved upon the cuckoo clock. His version didn't simply say, cuckoo, 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 when it struck the hour. Instead, it declared, love you, love you, love you. He left that clock at home with his wife each night while he spent his evenings at the club, believing that this mechanical serenade would serve as a sufficient declaration of his affection. Yet any man knows that you can't express love through machinery. This was merely a misguided scientific notion. Recently read that a prominent scientist claimed that love and worship are merely the aggregate results of physical causes. That is simply not true. Love and worship transcend mere physical causes, and educated individuals ought to know better than to make such statements. There are many valuable lessons that every man learns, only to forget them in the confines of a university. There's a real danger that someone might acquire so much education that they lose sight of what's truly important, allowing their trivial knowledge to push out the useful insights. It reminds me of a dog had in my youth. He was an excellent foxhound. One day, wanting to impress my friends, decided to showcase his skills. We released a fox from the barn door, which was cracked open just enough for the dog to spot it as it dashed away. He immediately started whining and barking to be let out, hurried outside and sprinkled some red pepper where thought the dog would chase the fox over the hill, then went back and opened the door. The dog bolted after the fox, but soon caught a whiff of the red pepper. Suddenly, he started whining and yelping again, then stopped, bipped, spun around, bipped, and raced down to the creek, bipped, plunging his nose into the water, bipped. From that moment on, after what like to call his pepper education, bipped, he refused to chase foxes at all. He received an education that misguided him, bipped, bipped, and this is often the case with many scientists. Do you realize that the most humble individual, regardless of their profession, often knows certain things instinctively because they haven't spent much time in school? It's surprisingly easy to warp one's understanding. When a young boy begins to learn geometry, the teacher might declare, bipped, two parallel lines will never intersect. The boy may look up and question, bipped, 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 bipped. What's the point of telling me that? Every person understands that two parallel lines will never meet. Bipped, bipped. But how do they know this? It's inherent to them. Their natural instincts reveal this truth. We refer to it as an axiom, a self-evident reality. It's beyond argument and transcends any reasoning. We know that two halves are equal to the whole. You understand that when you slice an apple in half, those two halves together equal the whole apple. You relay this concept to a geometry class, and they respond, bipped, bipped. Everyone knows it. Bipped. Naturally, they do. Bipped. It's an undeniable scientific fact that doesn't invite reasonable doubt. Ask someone, do you know that you exist? They'll look at you in astonishment and respond, of course. Don't know that No, I'm here. This is me, and I'm not Mrs. Smith or anyone else, and indeed, they do. But how do they know? It's a God-given instinct that came into the world with them. No scientist or institution on earth could disprove that, nor could they prove it. It simply stands as a self-evident truth. Know that am an intelligent personal identity. Existing in this body in a way that eludes full understanding. Recognize that this is my hand. Yet what possess is not who am. Understand, with unwavering instinct, that am a spiritual being. Distinct from this material existence. You know this too. No scientist can validate or invalidate it. It's a universally acknowledged fact. You know that you can never die, and you do as well, unless you've been educated out of that belief. It's a fundamental part of your innate instinct. When a graduate from a prestigious university approaches you, young man, claiming, I can prove that the Bible is untrue, or I can demonstrate that your religion is false, you can respond, you are nothing but an educated fool. The more you have studied, the less truth you seem to grasp. It is one's own personal self that can truly know their religious instincts. Only you can determine whether you are in a spiritual relationship with God. No education on earth can change that fact, although misguided study may cloud your mind. When someone comes to me, armed with their higher education, intent on dismantling religion, it reminds me of what Artemus Ward said to a haughty graduate from Oxford and Cambridge. This individual expressed his disdain for Ward's shows. Artemis Ward responded, "What do you know about these shows?" And the man replied, "I know everything about them. Graduated from 2 universities." Then Artemis Ward replied, "You remind me of a farmer in Maine who had a calf that stole the milk of 2 cows. And the more milk he got, the bigger the calf became." This reflects the sometimes profound impact that education can have on one's spiritual life. Sometimes, the more mental education you receive, the further you may stray from your innate religious instincts. Today, there is a pressing need, and prayers ascend to heaven for men and women whom mankind shall love, not just for their wealth or fame, but because they are great benefactors, enriching humanity as they journey through life. I won't delve into an argument right now. Rather, I won't delve into an argument right now. We'll illustrate my points because stories tend to stick with you more than arguments ever will. There exists a significant demand for artists at this moment. Never before, in the history of Christian civilization, has there been such a need for great painters. All of these walls should be adorned with magnificent paintings that convey profound divine truths. Every schoolhouse, doing and sewing, and even every barn ought to showcase artwork that educates and inspires. Our children flock to the movies, which indicates the powerful role that visual art plays in the instruction of humanity. We are in desperate need of thousands of artists. It's no wonder that a man in New York earns a salary of $35,000 a year for his work in film. He possesses the unique ability to notice things that others overlook. Similarly, it makes perfect sense that a major retailer in the city pays an advertising expert $21,000 annually, as he can perceive what the general public fails to recognize. We need exceptional artists, hundreds of them, but where will we find them? You might suggest they are found in art schools, at the National Gallery in London. Similarly, interestingly, the Louvre in Paris or in Rome. And you may indeed be right. However, it presents a challenging contradiction to your theory that one of America's greatest painters created his masterpieces using a cat's tail. Interestingly, the man who won the top award at the World's Fair in Chicago for a landscape painting never took a single lesson in color or drawing throughout his life. Yet, unauditory. This doesn't negate the value of lessons, doesn't negate the value of schools or universities. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm merely emphasizing my particular point. He won the highest accolade without ever setting foot in an art school. Had he attended classes, the teacher might have attempted to guide him, potentially stifling his creativity. Teacher who reveals to a child everything that the child could discover on their own is a detriment to their development. It's truly unfortunate for a child to be under the influence of a well-meaning teacher who feels compelled to show them everything. One of the most remarkable artists in history was Charlotte Brontë. She was an extraordinary woman. And have a fondness for remarkable women like her. Have you ever read Longfellow's poem about Little Women? It always brings Charlotte Brontë to mind for me. One day, he showed me the poem and asked him why he didn't include it in his book. He replied, "I don't think it's worth it. Since his passing, it has gained immense recognition, and I'd like to share a verse. As within a little rose we find the richest dyes, as in a little grain of gold, much price and value lies, and as from a little balsam, much odor doth arise, so in a little woman there's a gleam of paradise." Charlotte Brontë is one of those remarkable, vibrant, and beautifully complex embodiments of divine femininity that no man can truly capture in words. She had a younger brother to look after, and when a young woman is tasked with that responsibility, it means to make contact with her, especially if she has a suitor. Her hands can feel quite full. This younger brother was not particularly bright, clumsy in his movements, and ill-suited for the role of an artist. You should make use of it. With determination and resolve, Charlotte pursued her passion for writing. She poured her heart and soul into her stories, crafting characters that resonated with deep emotion and complex human experiences. Her talent blossomed, and she found her voice amid the challenges life had thrown her way. And so, Charlotte Brontë rose from the shadows of her tumultuous past to become a beacon of literary brilliance. Her novels, filled with ardor and insight, captivated readers and explored themes of love, independence, and the struggles women faced in a male-dominated society. They continue to inspire countless individuals to this day. Her story reminds us that resilience and creativity can flourish even in the face of adversity. Charlotte's journey is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a narrative woven with the threads of sorrow and triumph. Why don't you write something? This question prompted her to create her first masterpiece, Jane Eyre, the remarkable story for which she ultimately earned $38,000. Queen Victoria even invited that humble girl to Windsor Palace, recognizing her extraordinary talent. How did she come to write such a book? It was simply because she had observed, with keen attention for her brother's sake, that from the tip of her pen flowed those exquisite descriptions as naturally as water cascades down a mountainside. This is a universal truth. No one truly dedicates themselves to the good of others without receiving 100-fold more in this present time. Let me expand on this idea. While we do require great painters, we don't need more artists like the one who depicted the Israelites leaving Egypt, armed with muskets and marked with insignia. More than just artists, what we truly need are great musicians. There is a dire need for music in our world. We are surrounded by too much noise and far too little genuine music. Have you ever stopped to consider just how little you possess? Do you think a true musician is merely someone who can belt out lows and squeal up to highs? There is a tremendous need for the kind of music that refines the heart and brightens the mind, that brings glory and a sense of heaven down to humanity. We can't fully elaborate on that sentiment here, the desperate longing of people for authentic music. But the truth is, we don't receive it. We don't explain why. But perhaps can provide a glimpse into what music truly is. During my time at Yale, I did earn my own living. That's why I had to earn my own living. For the past 44 years, have dedicated my lectures to helping young men secure their college education. I would rise at 4 in the morning and work at the New Haven House from 4 until 8. Gathering up the leftovers from the breakfast tables so that my brother Anna could make ends meet. On some days, I would dig potatoes in the afternoon and teach music in the evenings, even though my primary focus should have been on the latter. Sometimes, my music students would invite me to play something to entertain their guests, and notice that the louder played, the louder they talked. Often remarked, "What a low standard of musical culture there is in New Haven." But after leaving college, I learned something about myself. I realized that was not a musician. If had truly been a musician, they would have listened. That's the only true measure of music, there is no other. If you sing and everyone whispers, or you play and everyone chats, it simply means you are not a musician. I dare to share this with you here, even though wouldn't have the courage to say it to you one-on-one. There's perhaps no one on earth who encounters so many falsehoods in a single moment as a person sitting at a piano. So, what is music? It could very well be a personal experience, yet still be called music. Remember Major Snow from my hometown, who used to enjoy the sound of the saw at the sawmill, how it screeched and scraped until it was almost unbearable. We asked the old Major why he chose to visit the mill on Saturday, when he could go any other day. He replied, "Oh, boys, you just don't understand. When was young, worked in a sawmill, and come down here to hear them file that saw. It reminds me of the good old days. To me, it's music." He had reached a point where the sound of a saw being filed was music in his ears, illustrating how people can be educated in various ways when it comes to what's deemed music. But is that truly music? Once visited a beautiful church in New York for a service, and as walked in, an officer of the church approached me down the aisle and said, "Sir, the choir always opens the service." Indeed, they did open it. took a seat on the pulpit sofa, and awkwardly waited for something to happen up there. The choir sat perched on a shelf above me. The soprano earned a hefty $4.00 year, LaHaye, and was eager to hear her sing. Before long, I could hear the sound of silk rustling above and the occasional giggle. Then, at last, the soprano began to sing. She struck the lowest note her finely trained voice could reach, and then she began to ascend, weaving her way upward almost like a corkscrew until she was out of sight. And she stayed up there. And the second bass began, making his way down, 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 plummeting to the depths of sound, and he lingered there. Now, was that music? Was it worship? If I stood in that sacred space and openly cursed at the people, it wouldn't have been a greater sacrilege than that performance up on that shelf. Do you really think the living God is to be honored with a high-flying, theatrical display in acoustics? There was neither worship nor music present. Music is not merely a dazzling circus act played in sound waves. So, what is music? Music is the combination of sounds that stirs the heart to higher emotions, sparks the mind to brighter thoughts, and inspires the entire being to noble actions. That is what music is. Nothing else qualifies as music. You can only determine if you are a musician by paying attention while you sing, to see if you capture the audience's attention and influence their memories and character. Need for orators. The need for great orators is alarming. I am frequently invited to give lectures at chautauquas and lyceums, and often, the committees urge me to recommend someone who can take the stage effectively. They offer remarkable rewards for those who excel in that role. Yet, there are no great orators alive today, none that are recognized in our country. When started my lecturing career 58 years ago, figures like Henry Ward Beecher, Wendell Phillips, Edward Everett, and George William Curtis, who is the greatest orator of his time, and John Goff. It was a significant honor for me to be encouraged by Mr. Goff to step onto the lecture platform. Now, they have all passed away, and no successors have emerged. Liberty and oratory have always gone hand in hand, and they always will, which makes the need for oratory particularly urgent today. So, why is it that we lack orators? Some editors suggest, and all semesters, it's because newspapers have come along and reach every household. On a Sunday, a person can read a better sermon in a newspaper than any that could be delivered live. And they'll avoid the expense of hiring a minister and the hassle of dealing with a choir, but firmly believe that day will never arrive. No matter how many newspapers we have, we cannot do without genuine orators. I have great respect for the press. Throughout my life, I have been involved with it, even owning and working for a daily newspaper. Yet, I must assert that there is something irreplaceable about the shake of a living man's finger, the flash in his eye, the stamp of his foot, and far more in his magnetic presence, qualities that no cold print can ever convey. You simply cannot capture the essence of a living person in mere words on a page. So why don't we have great orators? Personally, I don't believe the newspapers are the barrier. But others say to me, it is the harmful effect of the modern school of elocution, now referred to as the school of oratory. Just a few years ago, these elocution schools changed their names to schools of oratory, and in doing so, they have damaged the prospects of our country's oratorial prowess. The school of elocution may not be a genuine school of oratory at all. It could even serve as an obstacle to real oratory. It all depends on the quality of the teaching. There is a significant difference between elocution and true oratory. Elocution is an art of expression that every teacher practices, and they impart their unique approach to it. However, oratory is the grand science of effective speech. The one who convinces others to support their cause is an orator. regardless of what they choose to call themselves. If you call a dog and it comes, that is oratory. If it runs away, that's elocution. So, why don't we have more great orators? This brings to mind an incident that happened about 17 years ago. I don't think we'll offend anyone by bringing it up now. The elocution professor was absent one day, and the students came to me, asking if we'd step in since their teacher was away. I decided to go and entertain the class, turning it into an impromptu recitation, something professors often do. When entered the classroom, I asked the boy seated at the front, "What was the last lesson you covered in elocution?" One of the boys responded, "Peter Piper, pickle picker, picked 6 pecks of pickled peppers." If Peter Piper, pickle picker, picked 6 pecks of pickled peppers, where are the 6 pecks of pickled peppers which Peter Piper picked? Now, that's what we call lip exercise in elocution. I told that young man, "Will not teach elocution, but would like you to come up and present that to the class as if you were addressing an audience." The boy stood up, placed his toes together, and put his hands by his side. As he hadn't yet learned about gesture, he shouted the lines very quickly and loudly. "Hey, there's a guest in the class who wants to give it a try." I nodded, curious to see how this would unfold. The visitor stood up, cleared his throat, and with an air of confidence, he began. "Peter Piper, the pickle picker, 6 pecks of pickled peppers. If Peter Piper, piping, picked 6 pecks of pickled peppers, where are the 6 pecks of pickled peppers that Peter Piper picked?" He exaggerated every syllable, gesturing wildly as if he were performing in a grand theater, not in our small classroom. It felt more like a comedic performance than a serious presentation. The class erupted in laughter, not at the content of his words, but at his dramatic delivery. And there it was, an example of how dramatically different oratory can be from mere elocution. It was entertaining, yes, but it didn't quite capture the essence of what hoped for in public speaking. Even though his performance had flaws, it was undeniably memorable, an absurdly vivid reminder of how crucial connection and expression are in the art of speaking. That young man has graduated from an Eastern school of elocution, and he is going to perform the heavy parts in tragedy on stage. He is a remarkable elocutionist, so why not ask him to recite something for the class? Fell into the trap and approached the young man, saying, "Understand you are an elocutionist. Would you come up and recite something for the class?" The moment he looked at me, I could see in his eyes that something was amiss. While couldn't pinpoint the issue, events that unfolded later would make it clear that it was no unkindness to refer to him in this way. Said, "Please come up and recite something." To which he replied, "Should recite the same thing the other young men have been reciting?" Responded, "You don't need to do that. Choose anything you like." He left his gold-headed cane, the most distinguished part of him, on the floor and made his way up to the platform. Leaning on the table, he asked me again, should recite the same thing the other young men have been reciting? Said, You can do that if you wish. You are completely free to choose anything you like. The professor is away, after all. When the cat's away, the mice will play. With that, he began to prepare for his recitation. Had never witnessed such behavior in my life. He rolled up his sleeves, brushed back his hair, and moved the table forward. Instinctively slid back to the door, leaving the platform open, uncertain of what he would do next. He then delivered his selection. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. If Peter Piper, the piping piper, picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers that Peter Piper, The pickle picker, picked. He rolled the letter R with a flourish in every line. The class watched in awe and applauded until he repeated it. Though it was still elocution, it wasn't quite oratory. He believed that oratory was simply rolling his R's and performing for the audience. But that isn't what oratory is about. Where exactly do they learn oratory? Wonder. They learn it in the old-fashioned schoolhouse, from that wise old hen by the kitchen door, in some back office, in a hall, or perhaps in a church where young men and women gather to debate, expressing the ideas they truly believe in. They pay attention to the impact of their discussion on those who listen, noting how it convinces or inspires action in the audience. That's where the real learning happens. You have to be observant if you want to become a great orator. Believe the greatest orator of the future will be a woman. Just 2 months ago, the management of a women's Chautauqua mentioned, we could offer $40 a year to any woman who can be a natural woman on stage. They would profit from that investment if they hired someone who embraced her true self. The challenge is that when women take the stage, they often try to imitate a man's voice or demeanor. And right now, there is such a pressing need for women orators. It frustrates me when think about it. Why isn't there a remarkable woman orator like Mrs.? Just 2 months ago, the management of a women's Chautauqua remarked, we could offer $40 and $2,000 a year to any woman who can present herself authentically on stage. They understood that hiring someone who embraced her true self would yield a valuable return on their investment. The difficulty lies in the tendency for women to adopt a man's voice or demeanor when they take the stage. The demand for female orators is glaringly evident right now, and it frustrates me to think about it. Why don't we have a remarkable woman orator like Mrs. Livermore when she is so desperately needed? Woman influence. If women vote, they will hold little significance unless they also step into leadership roles. Simply casting a vote is not particularly beneficial if done without understanding. However, to sway 10,000 votes can have a significant impact. That is the role women must embrace if they are to truly exercise their rights under suffrage. They should become the influence behind the throne, not just passive voters. Reflecting on my childhood in district school. Recall a substitute teacher who entered our classroom and quickly won our affection. We would do anything for that little woman. One day, she, who couldn't obtain a first-class certification, copied a verse from a poem and asked me to read it aloud. If you cannot on the ocean sail among the swiftest fleet, rocking on the mighty billows, laughing at the storms you meet. She asked me to read it once, and then turned the paper over. Then she said to me, now, Russell, read it through once, and pay close attention to each word, and don't look back at a word a second time. Still don't understand why she insisted on that. I've searched through many psychology books, trying to find an explanation. But the truth is, I have none, and ask you to ponder this for me, as this is simply how it was. Took the second verse and read it as she instructed. Afterward, she turned the paper over and said, please repeat it. Replied, I cannot repeat it. I haven't memorized it. She responded, don't say that again. Just close your eyes and make a mental effort to visualize those verses. Then read it again. So shut my eyes and thought, oh, it's all dark. It's all dark. She appeared quite disturbed and said, now, Russell, please don't say that. Then replied, won't you try to do what I ask you to do? Thought the little woman was about to cry, so replied, yes, we'll do the best can. She instructed, close your eyes again and make a determined effort, with your eyes shut, to visualize that poetry as though it were right in front of you. Closed my eyes and concentrated, and suddenly, I could see it as clearly as if it were holding it before my open gaze. As long as my eyes remained shut, I could see the 2 verses and read through them, word for word, backward and forward, from beginning to end. It felt as if had encountered a ghost. When got home, I went home, excitedly told my father what had happened, and he rushed down from the pasture to the schoolhouse, confronting the teacher. If you indulge in your foolish superstitions again, you will never teach in that schoolhouse again. It must have been uncomfortable for her. And as far as know, her secret went with her to the grave. Yet would give anything to share with the world what that little girl knew. All of our educational institutions, for which have dedicated so many years of my life, would pale in comparison to that one secret. If only could impart it to you, the secret of being able to gaze upon a scene, close one's eyes, and bring it all back again, studying it in intricate detail, have never possessed great personal skill in this area. However, I've witnessed a man who could take a column from the morning paper, read it thoroughly, and then pass the paper to me, reading it again with his eyes closed, and making hardly a mistake. I can't recall seeing anyone who was infallible, but he rarely faltered. Often, he could even tell me the precise locations of commas, semicolons, and even capitals. Then, and other punctuation marks. I believe there isn't a single normal child who isn't mentally capable of that kind of power, when guided by a teacher who knows how to cultivate it. That little teacher, who held only a second-class certificate, was more knowledgeable about psychology than many of the most revered figures who lead our largest institutions. In the Alps several years ago, there was Professor Slayton, a native of Brighton, England. He was renowned as one of the nation's finest botanists. After the passing of his wife, he found himself raising a little girl who was between 5 and 6 years old. They were staying at the Hotel des Alpes, situated in the beautiful Chamonix Valley. One morning, he took his daughter up to the Mer de Glace and encouraged her to run back to the hotel, promising he would return to her by evening. She waved goodbye and watched as he made his way up Mont Blanc into the forest. Then she hastily made her way back. When evening came and he did not return, she spent the entire night anxiously waiting. At the crack of dawn, she bolted from the hotel and dashed along the stream to the path she had observed her father take. With determination, she began to scale the formidable snow-covered mountain. Suddenly, she arrived at a point where the path skirted a perilous cliff, a sheer drop of 280 feet, around a rocky promontory that jutted out a few feet behind. When she reached that spot, her feet slipped on the snow covering the slick ice, and she began to slide down, until her fingers caught in the moss at the edge. One foot found a precarious perch on a tiny rock ledge. Hanging there, she screamed, "Papa!" Her father heard that cry. Though he was far down in the valley, unable to see her, her voice rang clear. He recognized it instantly and felt a desperate urgency. Humanity called to him. He sprinted across the valley and up the path. Along the way, he spotted a tree, near which he had previously noticed an axe. Grabbing it, he pressed on to another tree where he remembered seeing a rope that the coal burners had long used to lower coal from the cliff. He chopped the rope with the axe, tossed the axe aside, and, tying the rope around himself as he had seen the guides do when leading travelers across the sea of ice, he dashed onward. Suddenly, he found himself at the very spot where his little girl had slipped. He could see the part in her hair 20 feet below, but between them lay nothing but glaring ice. His heart felt like it had stopped. He shouted, "Papa's here, hold on tight." She cried out, "Can't hold on any longer." In that moment of despair, he turned to her with desperation. "Oh, Sue Cornell, whoever you are, remember that you can save your own child from a physical or moral demise by teaching them the importance of obedience while they are still young. Her fingers clenched once more, and he secured the rope around the base of a tree he had noticed earlier. Then carefully lowered himself down over the ice. He reached for his little girl's hands, but they had sunk deep into the moss. Gritting his teeth, he let himself down beside her, grasped her dress, and pulled her close to him. Both were hanging from the edge of the cliff, the rope firmly in his grip, and his hand braced against the ice. He attempted to pull himself up, but the rope wouldn't budge an inch. Then he tried to lift his little girl, but her frozen fingers couldn't grasp anything, leaving them both suspended in the high Alps, alone. Would he plummet onto the jagged rocks below, meeting his end? No. He would not fall, for he is a king. He has relied on his keen observation skills, even though he is a university graduate. He had noticed something crucial: how the dogs howl when they discover travelers in peril. Those St. Bernard dogs, when they come across a lifeless body or an unconscious man, emit a specific howl. These dogs understand acoustics better than any architect ever could. But how do they know? God revealed it to them. When a dog releases that cry, it can be heard for miles around. The professor mimicked the dog's call, and as it echoed down the valley, the coal burners and wood choppers took notice, ears alert to the sound. They exclaimed, "That's a dog, and a dog only howls like that when it has found a dying man." With that, they dropped their axes and guns, rushing over the snow toward the source of the sound. When they arrived at the scene, one of them grabbed the rope and quickly slid down to seize the little girl's arm, passing her up to safety. Then he reached for the professor's arm, lifting him while the others pulled on the rope. It managed to hoist him up, but as soon as the professor reached the snowdrift, he collapsed and fainted. But he was a king in his own right. He had heard the cry of humanity. And in that moment, he instinctively knew where the axe was. His everyday studies had equipped him with the knowledge of where the old rope could be found, how to tie it, and how to call for help. Whenever you encounter a successful man or woman, you'll invariably find someone who responds to humanity's call. They are individuals who have honed their daily observations, equipping themselves with the knowledge of where to find the tools needed to fight life's battles and bring relief to others. Cannot better convey the professor's feelings than by sharing an English phrase he chose to print in his scientific works. Despite those books being published in French, we live for those who love us, for those who know us, true, for the heavens that bend above us, for the good that we can do, for the wrongs that lack resistance, for each cause that needs assistance, for the future in the distance, for the good that we can do. And that is the end. Thank you for listening on Audiobook Heritage. Subscribe for more timeless classics. ...